you can go into AstroSeek and they have a transit calculator. So what you do is you put your birth chart in and then you move it to a certain date. So you could move it to this date, this time, and then it will have all the lines in there connected to the different planets, and it will tell you if you have things sextiling, squaring, trining, etc. Really, when I'm doing these transit classes, that's something that you could pull up. You go, okay, here's when this event is happening. You can go to that event at that specific time, and then you're mapping. So you're mapping it onto your chart. So for that transit calculator, you type your chart info in, and then you, second to that, type in the info for that day, the transit day. You may find that you have a lot going on or not a lot going on, but whenever you're doing that for purposes of this class, we would then be focusing on, do you have any aspects that are relating to where the moon is? You could have other aspects going on, but when we're talking about the moon, are there any lines that are connected over to that planet from the outside in the transit ring? Yeah, it's complicated. There's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, and that's where in our reality, we are walking around and it's like all of these pieces are being shifted on the chessboard. And then sometimes certain moves are available, certain things are being activated, certain things are being knocked out, pieces are being knocked over, and then they come back up again. The board resets, things shuffle. I don't know why I'm using a chess analogy, but at certain times we're in a weaker position energetically. We are tired, we are drained, we are confused, we are passionate, we are focused, and sometimes many of those are happening at the same time. And we feel that we have a disconnect between the mind, body, spirit. And when we can use these tools, we can understand what that wing is doing. Okay, so where's my mind at and for how long? Where's my energy level at for how long? What's my emotional state at and for how long? So we're just calibrating as we go through each of the planets at any given time. It's representing, and we did talk about this in the recent lecture that I did on chart rulers. Each of the planets is associated with the body, with the chakras, except the outer planets. So then you could layer that on top as well. So what's the status of my stomach because of what's happening with the moon? You can really go deep with intermingling all of this together. And that's where I do try to encourage people to not go way over the deep end because we could get lost in it because it's so much information. And then if you spend all that time understanding every single thing, every single minute of every day, because it's constantly changing, then how can you live in the present? How can you just actually live your life? Do not put too much pressure on yourself to understand literally everything. That's why in these classes, I tend to focus on ingresses, very important as chapters, retrogrades, very important for reflection, introspection, our energy levels, things being slowed, being blocked. It's like warning, hey, watch out for these. Kazemi days, opportunities, too many things to keep up with. And if we really were following every single one of them, we would have to pick a lane. We would have to pick a lane and develop a system in order to dedicate so much time to follow it. And some of these don't repeat. Like I gave that example of the Mercury-Venus conjunction in Scorpio. Last time that happened was 6 years ago. So yeah, if we're keeping a very detailed log and we're tracking, we can glean some insights. And I do think from experience that trackers are super helpful. But if we create too many trackers or we're tracking everything, then it's harder to find meaning. So that's why I recommend starting with something like the moons. So the full moon and the new moon, and having a manifestation tracker, some sort of a log or a cycle for that. Following your chart ruler. If you have one, if you have three, I know there's some people I talk to from class who have three. That's a lot. Maybe choose one. Maybe just go with two. If you have an outer planet, maybe skip the outer planet. And Doing something like that, if you just followed your chart ruler only for the entire year, that would still be like a lot to track. What's happening with that planet? Where is it going? And how is it activating my chart? Every single planet that it aspects. That could still take hours of you sitting there and identifying all of those days and then writing a log for all of them. So it is a lot. So I encourage everybody to be curious, to ask questions, to want to explore, but it is overwhelming. And I don't even do those things. I don't do what I just described. And part of that is, for me, I have the moon, which is easy. So I go, okay, it's changing signs. Got it. Here's the new moon. Here's the full moon. Got it. But if I was taking the next step, I would be looking at what's every time that the moon is aspecting any planet in my natal chart and mapping all of those days out. And that could be hundreds, because the moon moves so quickly. It's going to keep cycling around and around and around and around. It could be thousands. Oh my gosh, could be thousands. So certain things are going to keep repeating. So that aspect of the moon to my Mercury is going to happen again multiple times during the year, except Mercury is going to be in a different sign. So there's going to be a different flavor. So yeah, there's a lot there's a lot that can be unpacked here. So be patient with yourself. And thanks, Carrie. Yes, so I do have a 2026 calendar. And so you can access that on your phone, on all of your devices, and then it just gives you an alert. And you can, of course, scroll ahead and look to see when transits and things are coming up. Which is the feet, Pisces. I know that one because I've had feet issues and I have a Pisces stellium. So I have a lot of Pisces energy in my chart. So when I learned that, I laughed. So that is one that I remember. You being here and looking to understand astrology is wonderful. And it's so great. And I continue to learn and understand this modality as well, because there's so much to uncover. Somebody brought up earlier Juno. I'm like, okay, that's on the list. I have asteroids that are on the list. I have fixed stars that are on the list. I have so many other things I want to learn. And I'm constantly consuming the knowledge and insights from other astrologers or from different branches of astrology. And I'm just consuming that information, letting that absorb. And then if that shifts how I am teaching, if it shifts how I'm engaging with it, then great. And I'm allowing that to kind of through osmosis evolve over time versus putting so much pressure on myself to memorize everything in a day. I've learned and I've memorized these things just over time from engaging with them, writing content, preparing for these classes, creating my calendar, and just my own studies and trackers. So the expectation is never that we are going to get all of this, and it's okay to be confused and important to ask questions. Does Mercury move faster and will it catch up again? Mercury does move faster, but what's going to happen is Venus is already going to be hightailing it out. For certain chunks of the year when we don't have the retrogrades interfering, Mercury is leading the way, but then when it gets in these retrogrades, because it takes so long to move through the one sign, these other planets, which are fast but slower, just keep going. But then when they retrograde, they take forever. So then Mercury goes pew and flies right past all of those planets and it catches up. But then we have points like this where it starts falling a little bit behind again. When you have these retrogrades and this planet moves and then this planet moves and then this goes faster and this goes slower, and they're just bouncing through the sky, but then they're still moving around. That's why it just happens to have taken that long. How many years is that? 6 years for them to reconnect in the same sign. And it's just because they just keep being off from each other. They meet up, but they're meeting up in different signs. So it just, again, that's the math and the science of it all. Chris, interesting. I did not realize that Sagittarius and Gemini were sister signs. Indeed. This explains my daughter Gemini and dad Sagittarius connection. Yes. So if they are sister signs by sun sign, then what that means is they inherently are similar, but then they're also inherently opposite in other ways. So they complement each other well. So they get each other, but they challenge each other. They're pushing each other to grow. It means that they could know how to push each other's buttons a little bit. Sometimes it's playful because both of those sides can be a little bit playful, actually, and like wanting to have fun or wanting to be the contrarian for Gemini, your daughter, and then wanting to ask questions. So they would both be intellectual, they would both be curious, they'd want to learn and understand, but then their approaches are different. And how they needle each other is maybe a little bit different, but it's very, word focused. Do I teach astrology one-on-one, Jackie? Wonderful question. So I do have some workshops and some resources for people to learn astrology. I have my calendar for people to learn astrology kind of through me. And then I do have a mentorship program. So I have 3-month option and a 6-month option. So those are available on my website. So if you are interested in working one-on-one to understand your chart, transits, kind of can run the gamut, then yes, I do have that as a service on my website. And if you or anybody is interested in either understanding my services or like what would be a good fit for you, feel free to message me. I've messaged with many people on the app or on other social media platforms or via email. People are trying to figure out based on where they're at in their journey, opening up, skill set. um, Happy to chat, do a whole back and forth to figure out what works for you. What is the best fit for where you're at right now?